The shy young boy sitting across from me was 14. He sat uncomfortably and fidgeted with his hands until he looked up at me embarrassingly and said, "I know that you're my real dad, but it feels really weird to actually call you dad." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I could feel my throat tightening. That seemed to happen to me a lot lately. I understand, Tom. It's been a while for me too. You know, when you were born, your mom and I called you Thomas, but you were so tiny we nicknamed you Tom Thumb. The memories threatened to overwhelm me at that point, and I had to take a breath. Tell you what, for now, how about you just call me Uncle Bill? Does that sound easier? Tom nodded his head and looked at the other person in the room. It was Jane Seymour, a court-appointed counselor. It was her job to figure out if this arrangement was going to work. Jane made more notes in the pad on her lap and turned to me. "Mr. Yates, there are a few things that we need to get organized before this can go ahead. You do know that it will require you to live permanently in Tom's house, don't you? It might present some problems for you, given the circumstances, but the court has determined that it is necessary for the stability of Tom's situation. How long would it take to get yourself settled in?" I looked at her and nearly backed out of the agreement, but I knew I had to do it. It had to be for Tom's sake. "I can have my things packed and ready in 2 hours," I replied. I was going to add that I only lived in a one-bedroom apartment and everything I owned fit easily into 2 suitcases. "Very well then, Mr. Yates, I will inform the judge presiding over this case that in my opinion, the arrangement could work. If you get organized on your end, we can meet you at Tom's house at noon." She got up and Tom followed her out to the reception area. Bridgetown General Hospital, that's where we were. I knew this place in better times. Times when I would wait patiently for my then wife, Yvonne, to finish her shift, and we would go home like 2 excited teenagers. Home to our house, the one that we paid a deposit on 2 weeks after we were married. The house that Jane now called Tom's home. Now this hospital is home to 2 people I would rather not have to think about. One was my lying, cheating ex-wife, Yvonne. She is in intensive care in a coma, one that the doctors say she may not get out of. The other is John Hampstead, that awful man who stole Yvonne from me in a cold, cruel long-term strategy. He was now lying on a stainless steel tray in the hospital morgue, 3 floors below where I now stood. I knew that it was tempting fate to talk or think ill of the dead, but I couldn't help myself. "Good riddance," I muttered. The car accident that caused this was reported on the local news last night. If I had owned a television set, I most likely would have been forewarned that something was about to happen. But I didn't, so the first I heard of the arrangement was when Jane approached me at work. "Mr. Yates, Mr. Bill Yates, I need to speak to you urgently on court-assigned business." "Oh great," was my first thought. "Miss Jane Seymour, is it?" I asked as I glanced at her name tag. "I have served my time and am trying to get on with my life, such as it is. What on earth could the court want of me now? I own nothing, have no savings to speak of, and don't owe anybody anything." Jane looked exasperated as she ushered me away from the other mechanics working on the same car that I was. "Mr. Yates, your ex-wife, is in a serious condition in the hospital. Your biological son, Tom, is fine. They were all involved in a car accident yesterday morning. Tom needs a caregiver. What about that guy, John Hampstead III or something? Hasn't he been doing a wonderful job of raising my son to be Tom Hampstead IV? Why can't he look after him just as he has been? He's dead, Mr. Yates. He died in the accident. As you know, there is no other family on either your ex-wife's side or on Mr. Hampstead's side. There is no one else to look after Tom, unless he is put into state care in one of the town's orphanages. There are no foster families available either. You're his last hope." I sat down, overwhelmed by the situation. I had not seen or heard from Tom in over 12 years, since he was 2. Since I had discovered that my wife Yvonne was having an affair with that person. Yvonne had only just begun working at the hospital again. Nursing was a job that she loved, and they offered her night shifts so that she could be home for Tom. I was always there to cover the rest of the time, until it was time for me to head to the garage where I worked as a mechanic. Unknown to me, the main reason she was offered the night shifts was because John, that person, also worked nights. He was the one who interviewed Yvonne for the job. Obviously, he liked what he saw in Yvonne. She always had a youthful appearance. Childbirth had not affected her body shape at all. Everything worked well for a few months. Yvonne would come home excited when one of her patients recovered from this or that. She would also come home in tears when one of her patients succumbed to their injuries or illnesses. She needed a lot of comforting then and someone to talk to. That was me. A change happened about 4 months in. She started spending more time at work, blaming hospital emergencies. This often rushed me in the mornings to get to work on time, but I accepted it for Yvonne's sake. The third and final change to our usual pattern was that we never got close on any day that she worked. She didn't start her shifts until 10 o'clock, so we had time then. I commented about the change and how it worried me, but she just dismissed it by saying that we weren't teenagers anymore. Her tone was displaying a real condescending attitude at this time. Once, she commented, "Is that all that you mechanics think about? Having alone time with their spouse? Where did that come from?" I wondered. The penny was beginning to drop that there was something going on. I had to investigate. With a few carefully worded questions to her work buddies, I found out that lately, Yvonne and John were spending all of their break times together. Where I asked, I did not like the answers. Sometimes they were in the hospital cafe, sitting together in a quiet corner. Sometimes, and this is the one that finally confirmed it for me, sometimes they just disappeared for the whole break time and emerged from some room or other, holding hands and walking that slow walk. I was also told that they would always finish their shifts in John's office. The door was always locked during this meeting. Okay, I thought, time to bring on the truth. I had read enough articles online to know that I had to protect my finances before initiating a divorce, so that is what I did. I hid money, I changed policies, and did all the usual things. I even managed to sneak into the hospital one morning when Yvonne and John were having a so-called meeting. It was difficult to do this with a sleepy 2-year-old in my arms at the time. At least having Tom with me allayed any suspicious looks. They didn't see me when they emerged from John's room later, but I knew my wife well enough to see that she had been with him. That certain look in her eyes, the way she moved, told me everything I needed to know. I went home heartbroken. Now the anger that built in me demanded that I do more than protect myself in the upcoming divorce. I wanted justice. I called in some favors from a hospital maintenance technician. We had fixed his car for ages, and I promised to do some extra work on it if he could do me this one favor. I wanted a video camera hidden in John's office, one that would stream the video to my computer at home. Easy, he said, and by that Friday it was done. He showed me how to activate the camera and how to record the footage to my hard drive. The footage I recorded made me sick to my stomach. I sobbed uncontrollably as Yvonne sobbed uncontrollably while John mistreated her. It frightened me. This justice had to be fair. I did what I had to do. Lawyers, divorce papers, claims of emotional distress against John, suing the hospital for enabling their affair, the whole legal process. They were both served at work, as was the hospital management at the same time. My plan for justice was to post the video footage on our social media page for all to see. It took the moderators of the platform 2 hours to remove the post, but by then it was too late. The damage was done. Everyone knew the truth. Yvonne's friends distanced themselves. The hospital management called them both in and reprimanded them severely. They were both significantly demoted, especially John. But the damage had already been done. In one of the court-appointed counseling sessions, I asked Yvonne, why? She looked at me sadly and said, "Bill, I still care about you, but lately I have been struggling to show that care. John has been there for me when you weren't. He comforted me at the hospital when times were tough. He made me see that you would always be a mechanic, but he could offer me more. He made me believe that I could have a life with a man who had a promising career, someone who made more money. I'm sorry if that sounds cruel and heartless, but those reasons matter to me." I could not meet her eyes because I was afraid of what I might be tempted to do. The counselor wisely called an end to the session and canceled any future sessions. She knew reconciliation was not possible after that. I was a broken man with a wounded heart. The court case began on a Monday. The judge, the Honorable Judge Georgina Webster, made it clear early on that she was not pleased with what I had done. My lawyer tried to explain my actions, but was shut down by Yvonne's lawyer with full support from the judge. I had lost. "Mr. Yates," the judge boomed from her lofty position, "you attempted to hide funds that were part of your marital assets. You also transferred ownership of insurance policies, retirement funds, and other assets with the intention of making it difficult for your spouse to access them. She is the mother of your child and deserves every bit of support that this court can provide. There went all my money. She received 85% of all funds and the house. Also, Mr. Yates, what you did on the social media platform that you both share is terrible and, might I add, illegal. Sharing images or videos without someone's consent attracts a very serious punishment from the law. No matter what issue you have with your spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse, you do not have the right to share private images or videos of someone else without their permission. This permission was not sought by you, nor given by your spouse. At this point, I glanced in the direction of the people I now thought of as jerks. They were both looking at me and smirking, patting each other on the back. This was bad enough, but when they saw I was looking, they both turned to each other and embraced. The hug of death, I thought. It was their embrace. But my downfall. Judge Georgina finally handed down her verdict. Mr. Yates, please stand. Your divorce is obviously granted. However, the matter of sharing images to a public social media platform will both be dealt with in a criminal court. As your now ex-wife has full ownership of your residence, a residence that her and your son live in, full custody is granted to Miss Yvonne Shine. The gavel went down, and that was that. My ex-wife had already started to use her maiden name. I was kept in custody until my hearing could commence in the criminal court. I was found guilty and sentenced to 8 years jail, mainly for the sharing of images, but also for fraud. Apparently, the courts wanted to send a message that this type of revenge had to be stopped. I served my time in a low-security facility which allowed regular visits, but none ever came my way. I didn't communicate with Yvonne, nor her with me. I heard nothing about my son Tom, my little Tom Thumb. I once remembered thinking that if I ever see him again, he won't be little anymore. When I finally was released, after only 7.5 years, for good behavior, I was able to get my old job back, but at a reduced pay and on probation. I was now a former prisoner. Poorer pay and loss of job security was going to be my future. I didn't try to connect with Tom as I needed him to be happy in his current family. I didn't want to add another complication to the poor kid's life. Apparently, everything was fine in the new Hampstead household. Mrs. Yvonne Hampstead helped out with many local charities while working 2 shifts a week at the hospital. Tom attended the local junior school nearby. Mr. John Hampstead had worked his way up to being hospital manager. Yep, everything was good for them. It was best that I didn't interfere with their perfect lifestyle. That was until the accident. When Jane led me into their house, it was like I stepped back in time 12 years. The paint was still the same. The furniture was all in the usual places, but much more expensive pieces. The wall decorations showed more luxurious tastes and classier fittings than when I was there last. Tom showed me his room, and it was here that I noticed some real changes. No longer the baby room with a crib and changing table. This was a teenager's room with posters, untidy clothes, and a certain sweaty smell. He seemed proud of it, and I nodded my approval as I left. I walked down the hall and was about to enter the main bedroom, out of habit. I caught myself and turned away before I could see the cheater's love nest. A nest which used to be mine and Yvonne's. Luckily, Jane saw my reaction and quickly closed the door. "It won't be necessary to go in there, Mr. Yates," she said with a more understanding and comforting tone. "You will be able to stay in the 3rd bedroom. I think you already know where that is." The 3rd, or guest bedroom, was actually quite spacious. We had it set up as a study when I still lived here. When I used to live here. If this was going to work, I would have to block out that way of thinking. I had to now focus on Tom. He needed my support. My belongings easily fit into the closet. I made my way to the kitchen where Jane and Tom now were. Mr. Yates, Bill. I checked the cupboards and fridge. There seems to be plenty of food and other necessities. The court-assigned carer system allows for me to assign a certain amount of money each week for you to act as Tom's guardian. I have left food vouchers and a small amount of cash to get you started. Now, if there is anything you need, please don't hesitate to contact me. All of my details are in the folder on the table. Anytime, any day, just call if needed. I will come in daily to check if all is going well. I understand that you work, and I have already seen your boss about the working arrangements. He wasn't happy that I suggest you only work the hours when Tom is at school, but I think waving the big court stick did its trick. She smiled when she saw me smile as well. Thanks, I said. I was wondering how that would work. I suppose I will have to put up with more challenges from my lovely boss because of this. Oh well, the things we have to do. When Jane left, Tom and I wandered around the house. I pretended to look at the paintings, etc., and he just wandered around, sneaking sideways glances at me from time to time. We needed to talk, and I was not looking forward to this conversation at all. 14-year-old kids are not known for their ability to have serious relationship-type conversations easily. "Hey, Tom, can we sit down for a bit?" "Sure," he replied. "Tom, this is not easy for either of us. Your mom is seriously ill in the hospital, and the man you called Dad for so long has died." He teared up at this point, but wouldn't allow himself to outright cry. Typical teenage kid. I just wanted to grab him and hug him and tell him that everything would be fine. But that would be strange. All of the closeness that is usually built between a father and his son was missing. We were strangers in a strange situation. "Do you think Mom will be all right?" he asked after he had control of his emotions. "I'll be honest with you, Tom. I don't know. The doctors don't even know. We just have to hope and pray that she will recover." I couldn't believe that I was hoping that Yvonne, my ex-wife, would recover. There was a time when I wished them both harm. "Will you come with me when I visit her?" he asked. "Of course, Tom. I am here for you while all of this mess sorts itself out. Now it is getting close to dinner time and I'm hungry. What about you?" Silly question. What 14-year-old is ever not hungry? "Sure, Uncle Bill," Tom replied. "I'll show you where everything is." "Sorry, but I'm not much good at cooking or anything." I hesitated again at the Uncle Bill comment, but knew that I had to live with that. Tom showed me where everything was, and I must admit that I cooked up a great meal, one that we both enjoyed, but ate in relative silence. This relationship was going to need a little work. After dinner, Tom went to his room. He had homework to finish, and frankly, I would appreciate some quiet time. I sat in the comfortable lounge chair, which was in exactly the same place as my old chair. I spent the time reflecting on the past again. If only I hadn't sought revenge, I thought. I would have had visitation with Tom, developed some sort of relationship with him, got to know his likes and dislikes, his fears and his desires. I looked around. This home could have been our home if only Yvonne hadn't been swayed over to betray me by John. Would have, could have, should have, I said aloud. Just at that time, Tom came into the lounge. "Sorry, Uncle Bill, what was that?" "Just thinking, Tom, how our lives have turned out so far. This chair, well, not this actual chair, used to be where I would sit. The television, a much smaller, basic one, was over there." I pointed to a space where a pot plant now stood. "I used to sit here after work for a while, having a soda while your mom would prepare dinner if it was her night to do so. A lot of things have changed since then, Tom." "Uncle Bill," Tom started and hesitated. "You and Mom were married before Dad married Mom, right?" I didn't like where this was headed, but knew that the questions to follow were probably ones that Tom dwelt on while growing up. "That's right, Tom," I answered. "What happened to you guys?" There it was. The question I dreaded to answer. The question which had an answer that could devastate Tom, as it devastated me so many years ago, and truth be told, still devastated me today. "Tom, I know you have probably had that question bouncing in your head forever. Did you ever discuss it with your mom?" I tried, but she always answered that you two just grew apart and got a divorce. She said that you did some silly things and got sent away for them. Some really serious illegal things which she wouldn't tell me about. She said that you had chosen not to see me anymore. These last words came out in a rush and I could sense the emotion behind them. Poor kid, I thought. He has never been told the truth of it. He honestly thinks I didn't love him anymore, and that is why I didn't try to see him. Tom, some of what your mom has told you is true. What I am about to tell you might be a bit harsh. Always remember that there are two sides to every story. Your mom has her truth and I have mine. Do you understand, Tom?" He nodded gravely. "Tom, your mom and I were the happiest couple in the world. When you were born, you came out of a love which had no bounds. You were a fulfillment of the beautiful love that your mom and I shared. We both just couldn't get enough of you. We playfully trick each other to get to hold you more, be with you more, and just sit and watch the young you develop and grow. Our Tom Thumb was growing before our very eyes, growing in a loving home. This one, I had to pause as my eyes again started to tear up. So had Tom's. Did you want me to continue, Tom? He nodded. Tom, everything was fine until your mom went back to work at the hospital. You know how much she loved and probably still loves nursing. She started spending more and more time with, I was about to say, jerk, but stopped just in time. She started to spend more time with John. He was the one who gave her the job in the first place. He arranged for them to be together every shift so that he could talk to her more and more. Eventually, I paused here, trying to find the words. Eventually, John convinced your mom that she would be better off with him, rather than me. He was a high-ranking manager, and I was only a lowly mechanic. A grease monkey, he called me. Your mom believed him more and more to the extent that she looked down on me and started to regret being married to me. They started to behave more like a married couple while they were at work. What do you mean by that, Uncle Bill? He asked. What do you mean like a married couple? Do you mean that they started spending a lot of time together? I didn't want to go into that detail, Tom. But I see that you're 14 now and not a kid anymore. Yes, they started spending a lot of time together at the hospital. They became very close behind my back, Tom. I didn't know about it for some months, but eventually the truth came out. They tried to hide it from me while your mom was still married to me. When I found out about it and got the evidence I needed to confirm it, I was the angriest that I have ever been. I am not normally an angry person, Tom, but I got so angry it frightened me. We divorced then, but I am afraid that my anger led me to do things that are seriously illegal, and I was sent away for 8 years. It was my own stupid fault, and I deserved to be sent away. What I did nearly destroyed your mom, and John. Tom looked at me, expecting me to go on. I didn't, so he asked, what did you do to get sent away? I hesitated before answering. Did I want Tom to know this? I decided to. He deserved the truth from my perspective, and if I wanted to ever have a decent relationship with him, I couldn't start lying now. I exposed their secrets online, and I tried to take as much money before the divorce as I could. There. I had said what needed to be said. Tom burst out laughing when I told him those truths. You what? That's some seriously outrageous stuff. Oops, didn't mean to say that. Sorry, that's crazy. I know, Tom. It was crazy of me to do it. I am sorry I ever thought of that as a revenge for what happened to me. I should have just accepted the divorce and moved on. Maybe then I would have been able to see you more often, and we could have a normal life for a divorced family, that is. No, Uncle Bill. You don't get what I mean. When I said crazy, I meant cool. He smiled at my lack of knowledge of the modern slang. Well, sorry, Tom, but the courts didn't think so. I did get sent away, you know. You don't know how many times I waited for my name to be called during visitation days. No one ever came to visit. I thought that your mom and her new husband had left town. I'm sorry, Tom, but I gave up on ever seeing you again. I was resigned to living the rest of my life without you. When I was finally released after all of those years, I tried to move on as best I could. As an ex-convict, it was much more difficult than I thought. I was surprised when the court system, the system that put me behind bars, would actually ask me to take care of you at this time. I would have thought that they wouldn't even consider it. I think Jane had a bit to do with it, but of course I'm not sure. Anyway, I am as scared as heck about this situation right here. You're my son, yet we're complete strangers. I don't even know where to start with getting to know you. I have been a bit of a recluse recently, so my social skills are not up to scratch. As for my dad's skills, well, they are definitely set back in the past. Tom seemed to digest everything I told him. He was obviously in turmoil about the two different versions of what had happened so long ago. Uncle Bill, and I promise I will try Dad soon. Thanks for telling me what you did. You might need these. He reached behind him to where an open box of tissues were. I didn't realize it, but the tears were streaming down my face. The telling had opened too many old wounds. Then followed a settling down of routine. I would make breakfast for both of us. Tom would eat and head off to school. I would head off to work. The occasional bickering about my situation eventually slowed to a manageable point where I could go to work feeling sort of happy. My reclusive habits of the past few years were beginning to disappear, so my coworkers started to see the real me again. Workplace banter replaced the past arguments. I would arrive home before Tom and get as much housework done as possible. Tom would arrive home, and soon after, Jane would stop by to see how everything was going. She could see that Tom and I were getting along fine and even commented on that. You guys are doing fine. I think I will only come once a week from now on. Which day suits best? I answered that Wednesday would be best, as we seemed to be less busy then. Tom usually had his homework done, and I was up to date with everything around the house. That was settled. Tom and I visited the hospital every second day. He would usually sit with his mom and tell her all about what was happening. I waited in the waiting room during these visits. I still couldn't bear to see that person who hurt me. Tom understood my hesitation to go into her room, but would still comment on how she was looking when he came out. Tom's school was very supportive of him whenever they could be. One dreaded moment came when he gave me a letter from the school. informing me of the upcoming parent-teacher interviews. He looked at me expectantly as I opened the envelope. "Uncle Bill, you will come with me, won't you?" I choked up but promised him I would. This would be the first official time that I would be recognized as a parent carer of my child. I greeted his teacher and she asked immediately, "And you're?" "Hi, I am Bill Yates, Tom's dad." I answered in as normal a tone as possible. "I see. I noticed that a Mr. John Hampstead is listed as Tom's father. Just excuse me a moment." She left to see the principal or some other administrative person sitting nearby. On her return, she was most apologetic. "I am so sorry, Mr. Yates. Please forgive me. The office records have not yet been updated to reflect your current situation. I am, however, very pleased to inform you that Tom is progressing extremely well. His grades, as you can see from his report here, are excellent. He is a fine young man who works very diligently. All of his teachers comment on his excellent work ethic and his ability to get along with everyone. You should be very proud of him." I looked at Tom, who was looking very embarrassed. "I am, and thank you." The trip back home was very quiet until I broke the silence. "You know I meant what I said, Tom." "What was that, Uncle Bill?" he answered. "I am proud of you. Very proud, son." I stopped talking as I could feel my throat tightening again. Our routine was well established, but was rudely interrupted one Wednesday evening. Jane had just arrived, and as we opened the door to her, she received a phone call. "What?" "That's amazing news. I am here now?" "I will let them know immediately." "Thanks." She signed off and looked at both of us, but directed her news to Tom. "Your mum has woken up from the coma and is conscious. She can't talk properly yet, but is able to have visitors. Or two." The last bit was for my benefit. Tom was beside himself all the way to the hospital. "Mum's okay. Mum's okay." He kept repeating. "Tom, that's great news, but I have to tell you, don't expect too much yet. It takes a while for all of your mum's body systems to function properly after being in a coma for so long." "I know, Uncle Bill, but at least it is a step in the right direction, right?" "Yes, it is, Tom. I am so happy for you." I couldn't add the same about his mum. It was a chaotic experience. Tom immediately rushed to his mum's room where a group of nurses and other medical personnel gathered around Yvonne, adjusting this, charting that, fluffing pillows, etc. around her. I kept forgetting that these people were her work colleagues and were just as eager as Tom to see her. Tom was allowed to sit beside his mum and immediately took her hand. He hugged his mum. The smile she gave caused everyone in the room to sigh and get teary-eyed. I even almost shed a tear as well. Almost. I was outside the room, looking in. Yvonne tried to speak, but only her lips moved. The long time with breathing tubes, etc. packed down her throat had left its mark. Luckily, Tom did most of the talking until the medical staff ushered him out while they continued their post-coma tasks. "Can we come visit again tomorrow, Uncle Bill?" "Yes, of course, Tom. We will come every day as soon as you get home from school." And so a different routine emerged. Tom home, off to the hospital, Tom inside the room talking and leaning close to his mum to hear her ever-increasing volume of whispers. I waited outside the room, catching the occasional glimpse of the scene inside. Once I thought I saw Yvonne move her head towards the door, but I had seen her slow movement in my direction, and I just ducked behind the door before she could fully see me. Tom gestured in my direction, but I did not acknowledge his intentions. Tom was extra quiet that trip home. "Uncle Bill," he started. "We have been honest with each other ever since we reconnected, haven't we?" "Yes, Tom, I believe we have. What's on your mind?" This evening, Mum asked about who was taking care of me and how it was going. I said Uncle Bill, and she asked who I meant. I told her, and she gasped. I thought that she was going to be shocked or something. She asked me if you were there at that time, and I told her that you were. She tried to look at you, but you were gone when she looked. She wants to speak with you. How do you feel about that? I was astounded on many levels. First, I was astounded that Tom felt comfortable enough with me to do what he did and ask me what he asked. Second, I was astounded that Yvonne would actually want to talk with me after all we had gone through. Third, I was astounded with myself because I actually considered doing what she asked. Goodness, what a mess. Tom, you know the history between your mum and me. What she is asking is probably something beyond where I am at the moment. He looked despondent, so I quickly added, maybe it's something I would consider some time in the future, son. That made him happier, but not me. Yvonne grew stronger and stronger each day. She accepted the news that her husband had died in the crash with great sadness. She still loved the jerk, I thought grimly. This sadness was tempered by the fact that Tom was okay and being cared for. I'm not sure how she felt about the fact that it was me that was doing the caring, but I didn't really care at that point. Everything I was doing for Tom, not her. Jane's next visit was interesting. Bill, Yvonne really needs to talk to you. I think you should go see her by yourself if you are up to it. I will look after Tom while you do that if you like. The anger I felt so many years ago welled to the surface. How dare you? I shouted at her. How dare she? After all that she and that jerk had done to me, all that I have had to suffer because of her cheating with that deceitful jerk, and she wants to speak with me. The hurt, disrespect, and utter contempt that those two caused me and treated me with nearly sent me to my grave by my own hand. The only thing, and I mean the only thing, that kept me on this planet was the hope that I would not lose Tom as well. My Tom Thumb, she wants to speak with me now? Now, after all of these years, after all of the missed opportunities to allow me and my son to have some sort of relationship, albeit via some visitation system, that person, that selfish, lying person. I suppose she knows now that I would be the only person in Tom's life now that jerk is finally dead and she better mend some sort of bridge. I don't think so, Jane. The way I feel about her, she can still rot in hell along with her jerk of a husband for all I care. I slammed the door as I went outside. I knew I had blown up at the one person who had shown me any trust and consideration. Jane. Also, I knew that Tom had heard every word. The volume one yelled at would have allowed the neighbors to hear clearly my outburst, let alone Tom through a thin inside wall. After a while, I cooled down enough to re-enter the house. Jane and Tom were sitting at the dinner table. Tom had obviously been crying and my heart went out to him. That poor person has had to put up with enough without me adding to his misery. I'm sorry, Jane. You didn't need to hear all of that. You were just in the line of fire. I looked at Tom, who had his head down. Forget it, I thought. I went to him and ready or not, he was going to get a man hug from me. The sort of hug a father owes his child. I came up behind him and hugged him tight. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry, son. I love you and have since the day you were born. I'm sorry to have caused you so much pain. The tears flowed freely from both of us. Jane looked a little embarrassed at this emotional display, but managed to keep it together for our sake, I think. Tom eventually returned the hug. That was a moment I would never forget. One of those moments that a dad treasures forever. My son was showing his love for me for the first time as an almost adult. I'm sorry, son. What your mom is asking is really hard, I managed to blurt out. Jane looked at me and with teary eyes said, Bill, you know it will have to happen eventually. You will know when the right time is. Just don't leave it too long. She left us then. She left Tom and me to ourselves. I don't know how long we waited, but we eventually parted and started doing the normal dinner time things. Me preparing dinner, Tom preparing the table. What's up with you, Dad? Asked Tom during dessert. That smile hasn't left your face all dinner. Is there something I should know? Tom, you have made me the happiest I have been in the last almost 13 years. And I think you know why. That smile was still there. I know, Dad. I realize what you have gone through and all for my sake. You are a real dad, and I just realized what that meant to you. I know that I have called another man dad most of my life until now, but I also realized that you were always my dad. That man I called dad was just a substitute, someone Mom chose, not me. I choose you as you chose me all those years ago when I was born. I will be grateful for what John did for me during these years, but there is no denying that your love for me, as your biological son, was always there, in the background, waiting for me to realize it. I am just glad that I found out about it before I grew too old, or should I say before you grew too old, old man, and he punched me on the upper arm. The next meeting with his mom was quite an emotional affair. She was speaking fully by now. I could see Tom getting quite agitated and Yvonne was sobbing with her head in her hands. I had better diffuse the situation as best I could. I entered the room and both occupants silenced themselves as I entered. Bill, she whispered. Hi, Yvonne, I managed. Thank you for taking care of Tom while I was out, she said. He is my son, I replied. Yes, he is, she replied. He always was, and always will be, I replied. Bill, I am sorry for how things, she started. Don't go there, Yvonne, I interrupted. That might be a conversation for some other day, if ever, I said seriously. Just know that our son is in good hands. I am doing what I can. He knows my side of the story of our divorce, just so you know. You may need to speak more one-on-one with him and let him know the truth from your lips as well." And I left. Tom came out soon after. "Thanks for at least breaking the ice, Dad. I appreciate it. I don't know about breaking the ice, Tom. More like maneuvering through a difficult situation." He smiled. He was my son. Soon, inevitably, it was time for Yvonne to leave the hospital, and of course she had to come back to the house. This house was beginning to feel like my home again. Mine and Tom's. Now she had to return to it. This was going to be another layer of challenges. The day arrived when she came to the door, accompanied by the ever-present Jane. They went to the main bedroom where Jane helped Yvonne get settled into her bed. Fluffed pillows and placement of all the necessary items around her allowed Yvonne to feel comfortable again. I stayed away. Tom was there taking care of her every need. Dinner time came and I prepared enough for all of us. It was Tom who brought the food to Yvonne. I ate alone while they caught up in the main bedroom. Was this going to be how it is? I thought. It was for many weeks until the day of dread came. She came down for dinner at the dinner table. Tom was ecstatic. He blurted out, just like our old family. Before he realized what he had said, sorry, he mumbled and continued eating in silence. As did I, and Yvonne. This was getting very uncomfortable for all of us, and I commented to Jane about it one Wednesday. "Jane, this can't go on like this. It is hurting all of us. Tom is so excited about having his mom home again, as well as having me in his life again, but I still can't stand to be in the same room as her. Sorry. Bill, you have to make the first move to normalize relations at some level with Yvonne. I know what you have gone through. I haven't told you this before, but I have also gone through a divorce due to a cheating spouse. It took me 2 years before I could even talk to her again. I feel your pain. But it is Tom that you have to think of. You already know that. Try to come to some sort of understanding with your ex-wife so that Tom doesn't have to live in a toxic environment for the rest of his home life, please. He is such a good kid. Don't ruin him by exposing him to constant negativity and outright hatred. Please, Bill, do it right." That woman, I thought. She is right. I took a day off work, and while Tom went to school, asked Yvonne to come to the lounge for a talk. She was hesitant at first, probably thinking that she was going to be the subject of a rant and lecture about her past actions. "Bill," she began, but I interrupted her. "Yvonne, first, let me tell you that what you and John did to me was beyond terrible. You broke my heart so badly that it took me years of soul-searching and reflection, along with some counseling to put a little light back into my dark heart. I wanted you and that jerk dead. I knew, however, that it would mean Tom would be left alone. I am telling you now, honestly, that I am glad he is gone." She let out a stifled sob as I said that. "He took away from me the person who filled my heart with joy and hope. That was you. He took you away from me. He stole you. Not because of anything I did or did not do, but purely by convincing you that you deserved better than me and that I was too lowly for you. He was nothing but a conniving, lying jerk. He planned for you to be with him from the very start. He convinced you of all the lies and disrespect towards me. I will never forgive him for doing that to you, and I will never forgive you for allowing yourself to be trapped by his web of deceit. You didn't trust me, but you allowed yourself to trust a man, if I can call him that, a snake who plotted and connived to trick you from the start." I took a breath. I wasn't shouting, I strangely wasn't angry. I was just telling it from my heart. Tom needs not just me now. He also needs you. He loves you. I don't and never will again. I don't think I can love anyone else again the way I loved you. How can I dare to put myself on the love line again after being so coldly and cruelly treated by the both of you? I will forever call John jerk, and I will forever think of you as trickster. I am sorry, but that is how it is. I will live in this house, not my home. I will provide what I can for Tom and be the dad he needs. I will not provide for you. I am sure that jerk had some insurance or something which will allow you to contribute to the household, but that is it. End of story." Yvonne was sobbing uncontrollably by now. She managed to regain control of her breathing after a while and simply said, "You're right, Bill. Everything you said is right. I will not say sorry because that will never heal your hurt. I see that Tom has provided the ray of light to your heart, a heart so cruelly darkened by me. I agree with everything you have said. I will try to be civil at all times, especially around Tom. If it means anything at all, thank you for being there for our son. He has grown to love you again, a love that I am jealous of, but a love that was destined from his birth. Thank you, she left to her room again, and from then, a semblance of normality reigned. Tom grew and graduated from college to begin his university course. He wanted to study counseling, especially family counseling. Poor guy could write the book on that one. I left for my own place as soon as Tom left. That quest for revenge so many years ago had repercussions way beyond what it was meant to do.